Rob, a Lake Michigan angler here. Shore fishing starting right now. We've actually had some really good fishing this past week from shore on the piers and out in the rivers for steelhead and coho and browns and everything. So just want to give you a quick rundown on the rigs and the tackle that we use for shore fishing. Most of it's spinning rods. With a little bit of bait casters, but most of it's spinning rods. And we use mostly long rods, anywhere from 8.5 to 10.5 feet and even 11 feet long. So I just want to show you the different rods and the different applications for each length and action and everything like that. So this is the Okuma Connoisseur rod, great rod for the money. This and the Okuma Salilo, both retail for $65. It comes in a variety of lengths and actions, just depending on the application. So right now we have a few different things going on on the piers and in the rivers and in the harbors, and just depending on what you want to do dictates which rod you want to use. So when you're casting spoons or other heavier baits like that, typically a medium or medium heavy action is what you want. This right here is an 8.5 foot medium heavy. It's a little bit heavier than what most people use for casting spoons right now, but in the fall when the kings come around, when we're casting like 3/4 ounce KO wobblers, stuff like that, this is a great rod. Right now, most people are using smaller spoons and crankbaits, and like a medium light or medium is the appropriate action for that. But guys are using medium heavies right now because right now we've got some dirty water near shore from all the rough weather we've had. They're bottom fishing with pyramid weights, and with the pyramid weights being heavier, the medium heavy rods work really well. Your typical bottom rig is like a 3-way rig with the medium heavy, or just a slip rig, where you have the weight sliding down to a swivel, and then your fluorocarbon leader going to the hook. It could be like anywhere from 2 to 4 foot leader, and then your bait. And you just let that sit on the bottom. It could be with spawn sacks, skein, minnows, worms, any of that. It all works, and it's all working right now for a variety of fish. When we get into the harbors, a lot of times tube jigs work really well. The medium lights are great for casting floats with tube jigs. Anytime you're float fishing, a medium light rod is the way to go. If you're casting some more heavier crankbaits, you can use the medium light on the lighter crankbaits, but the medium is more appropriate for the heavier crankbaits. The length of the rod, the reason we use such long rods is because we like to use light line for the size of the fish. We catch pretty good sized fish, and the longer rod allows the rod blank itself to absorb the shock of the fish rather than the line, so you can get away with using lighter line. The other thing it helps you do is cast further. So those are the reasons we use a long rod, and the length of the rod is a little bit personal preference. This one's 8.5. We have a 9, 9.5, all the way up to 11. We'll see most of the guys fishing piers and harbors using anywhere from 8.5 to 9.5, and then longer rods are used more in the rivers. Float rods for rivers are typically longer because you need to keep the line higher out of the water in order to get a good drift and to be able to mend your line better while you're making that drift. The key to good river fishing is having a drift, your bobber drifting downstream at the right speed, just matching the river's flow perfectly. Shorter rods will work, especially in smaller rivers, but it's just easier with a longer rod. This is the Okuma SST series. This one right here happens to be the 10.5 foot float rod. It's a great rod for fishing in the rivers. It's a little bit higher end than the previous to the Salilo and the Connoisseur that I spoke about. It's a very nice rod. It's got a great handle, carbon fiber handle, very sensitive and casts really, really nicely. We paired this one up with a 3000 size Okuma Seamar reel. It's another great reel for this kind of fishing. The SST is probably the most popular rod we sell for shore anglers. Just overall great rod for the money. The step up from it is the Okuma Great Lakes Custom Series. This rod right here is just a little bit lighter. This in particular happens to be a 9 foot medium heavy. It's actually a really popular rod for casting for kings in the fall. I would pair it up with the same reel or a Daiwa at 3000 series. It allows you to have the line capacity for big fish to take long runs. This one happens to have a combination of cork and EVA handle, but it's really nice, light rod, casts very well. Great rod for the money. This one also we have in a bait caster in 10.5 foot with the spiral spiral wrap on the guides. So the guides will start on the top for the bait caster, but by the end of the rod, they're pointing down, which is a great option for fishing the bigger rivers with bait casting tackle when you're using heavier bobbers, heavier weights to get down in the heavier current. So when you're shore fishing, there's a lot of different rigs you can do. Right now, they're catching fish on the bottom with the pyramid sinkers. Once the water clears up a little bit, you're going to see fish rise to the top off the piers, and that's when casting lures gets better, or just fishing slip bobbers with jigs and other bait. And that's when those lighter rods come in handy. Also, if you're inside the harbors, just casting crankbaits, casting spoons. Again, a lot of times we're fishing that top 10 feet or less, really, when we're fishing in shallower. The other setups are for the rivers. You can fish rivers a variety of ways. The first and probably the most popular right now is just a simple float setup. You can use a slip bobber, you can use a fixed bobber. Doesn't really matter each way, it's just personal preference. Most of the time around here in our area of northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, the rivers are fairly small. A lot of times a fixed bobber is all you need, but when you get into the bigger, deeper rivers, a slip bobber is easier. I really like to use braid line anytime the water is, or the air temperatures are above freezing, because it floats and it's easy to mend the line and keep that nice drift in the river. When you're fishing below freezing, braid doesn't work out too well, so a good floating mono like the Blood Run floating mono is a great choice for that. Typically we use a heavier main line than the leader, so I like to use 15-pound braid for my main line, and then my leader is going to be anywhere from 6 to 10 pound depending on what I'm doing and the water conditions. The clearer the water, the lighter leader I'm going to use. As far as baits go, you can fish jigs like tube jigs, hair jigs, spawn sacks like we have here. And what's been really good lately are the beads. This is a bloop bead, and the bead setup's really easy. You know, you're going to have your bobber, you're going to have a series of split shots spread out evenly, and then you're going to have this bead line going through the bead, and it's going to be pegged with a toothpick or another kind of rubber peg about 2 inches ahead of your hook. And you just let this drift in the current, and that's all you need to do. Sometimes you can put a spawn sack on the hook. You don't really need to if you don't want to. It's just let the fish tell you what they want. If you have any questions about any of these rigs or rods or setups, feel free to contact us at Lake Michigan Angler. We have them all available on our website or stop in the store. Oh, and don't forget, if you found this video helpful, like and subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching.